The dust kicked up from Jake Morrison's horse as he rode into the small trading post near the Apache reservation. His weathered hands gripped the reins tightly, and his blue eyes scanned the area with the caution of a man who had learned to survive in hostile territory. Jake was not like other cowboys who avoided the Apache lands. He had been trading with them for 3 years, bringing supplies they needed and taking back beautiful handmade goods to sell in the nearby town. The Apache people had come to trust him, something rare for a white man in 1887. Jake treated them with respect, learned some of their language, and never tried to cheat them in trades. His honesty had earned him something precious in this dangerous land: acceptance. As Jake dismounted near the small wooden building that served as a trading post, he noticed 2 young Apache women watching him from across the clearing. They stood near a group of horses, their long black hair braided with colorful beads that caught the afternoon sunlight. Both wore traditional Apache dresses decorated with intricate patterns, but Jake could see they were sisters by their similar features and the way they moved with the same graceful confidence. The older sister, Ayanna, had fierce dark eyes that seemed to look right through a person. She was known among her people as a skilled rider and an excellent tracker. Many young Apache men had tried to win her attention, but she showed little interest in marriage. Her younger sister, Kaya, was gentler in nature but equally beautiful. She had a warm smile that could make even the most hardened cowboy feel welcome. Jake had seen both sisters before during his trading visits, but today something was different. As he unloaded his supplies from the pack horse, he felt their eyes following his every movement. Ayanna whispered something to Kaya, who blushed and looked away quickly. Jake pretended not to notice, but his heart began beating faster. He had been alone on the range for so long that the attention of any woman, especially 2 as beautiful as these sisters, made him nervous. The trading post owner, an old mountain man named Pete, came out to greet Jake with a wide grin. "Well, if it ain't our favorite cowboy," Pete said, slapping Jake on the back. "Got anything good for us this time?" Jake nodded toward his supplies. Coffee, sugar, some metal tools, and ammunition. The same as always. But his eyes kept drifting toward the 2 sisters, who had moved closer and were now examining some of the blankets he had brought. Ayanna approached first, her movements confident and direct. "These blankets," she said in clear English, "they are good quality. My people will want them." Her voice was strong and sure, nothing like the shy whispers Jake expected from most young women. Kaya stepped forward more hesitantly. "The colors are very beautiful," she added softly, running her fingers along the woven patterns. When she looked up at Jake, her eyes were warm and inviting. Jake found himself caught between them, unsure where to look or what to say. Both sisters were clearly interested in him, but in completely different ways. Ayanna challenged him with her direct stare and bold questions about his life on the ranch. Kaya drew him in with her gentle manner and the way she listened carefully to every word he spoke. As the afternoon wore on, Jake completed his trading, but the sisters remained nearby. Other Apache people came and went, conducting their own business, but Ayanna and Kaya seemed content to stay and talk with the cowboy who had captured their attention. When the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Jake knew he would have to leave soon to make camp before dark. But as he prepared to mount his horse, both sisters approached him together. "Will you come back soon?" Kaya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Before Jake could answer, Ayanna spoke up boldly. "A man like you should not travel these lands alone. It is dangerous, especially at night." Jake tipped his hat to both women, his mind racing with thoughts he had not expected when he woke up that morning. "I'll be back in 2 weeks with more supplies," he promised, though he was already wondering how he could make the trip sooner. As he rode away into the gathering darkness, Jake could not stop thinking about the 2 sisters. He had spent years focusing only on his ranch and his trading business, never allowing himself to think about settling down with a wife. But something had changed today. Both Ayanna and Kaya had stirred feelings in him that he thought were buried forever. Behind him, the 2 sisters watched until his figure disappeared into the shadows. Neither spoke, but both knew that something important had begun. The competition for Jake Morrison's heart had started, and only one of them could win. The days following Jake's visit brought unusual tension to the Apache camp. Ayanna and Kaya, who had always been close despite their different personalities, now found themselves competing for something they both wanted desperately. Their mother, Morningstar, noticed the change immediately. "My daughters," she said one evening as they sat around the fire preparing food, "your hearts have been captured by the white cowboy. But you must remember only one path can be chosen." Ayanna looked up from the rabbit skin she was preparing. "I am not afraid of competition, Mother. If Jake Morrison is meant to be mine, no one can change that." Her voice carried the same confidence she showed when hunting or riding, but her mother could see uncertainty beneath the bold words. Kaya continued grinding corn in silence, but tears gathered in her eyes. She had never competed with her sister for anything before. Ayanna was always the stronger one, the leader, the one who got what she wanted. How could she, gentle Kaya, hope to win the heart of a man when her own sister wanted him too? Meanwhile, Jake found himself making excuses to return to the trading post earlier than planned. He told himself it was just good business to check on his Apache customers more frequently, but he knew the real reason. He could not stop thinking about both sisters and the impossible situation he found himself in. When he arrived at the trading post only 1 week later, Pete raised an eyebrow. "Back already? That's the shortest 2 weeks I ever seen." Jake shrugged and began unloading his horses, but his eyes were already searching for Ayanna and Kaya. He did not have to wait long. Both sisters appeared as if they had been watching for him, but this time they did not come together. Ayanna arrived first, riding a beautiful painted horse at full gallop. She pulled up beside Jake with perfect control, the horse barely breathing hard despite the fast ride. "You came back sooner than you promised," she said with a knowing smile. "I hoped you would." Before Jake could respond, Kaya appeared from behind the trading post building, carrying a beautifully beaded leather pouch. "I made this for you," she said quietly, offering the gift with both hands. "To carry your trading money safely." Jake looked from one sister to the other, feeling more confused than ever. Ayanna impressed him with her skill and boldness. Any man would be proud to have such a strong, capable woman by his side. But Kaya's gentleness and thoughtfulness touched something deep in his heart that had been closed off for years. "Thank you both," he managed to say, accepting Kaya's gift while trying not to notice the disappointment that flashed across Ayanna's face. Over the next several hours, both sisters found ways to spend time with Jake. Ayanna challenged him to a horse race, which he won easily, laughing with delight at his surprised expression. "Your ranch horses are too fat and lazy," she teased. "I could teach you to ride like an Apache." Later, Kaya brought him cool water and food, sitting nearby as he ate and telling him stories about her people's history. Her voice was soothing, and Jake found himself relaxing in a way he rarely did around other people. As evening approached, the impossible situation became even more complicated. Ayanna approached Jake directly, her usual boldness replaced by something more vulnerable. "I have never wanted to marry before," she told him honestly, "but you are different from other men. You are strong enough that I would not have to hide who I am." She paused, looking out at the mountains. "My people say I am too wild for marriage, but I think you understand wild things." Jake's heart pounded as he listened to her words. Before he could respond, Kaya appeared at his other side. "Sister," Kaya said quietly, "may I speak with Jake alone?" Ayanna's eyes flashed with anger, but she nodded and walked away, her back straight with wounded pride. When they were alone, Kaya took Jake's hand gently. "I know my sister is braver than me and stronger, but I can love you in ways she cannot. I can give you the peace and happiness that a man needs after long days of hard work." Her voice trembled slightly. "I have watched you for months and I see the loneliness in your eyes. I could take that away." Jake felt as if his heart might tear in two. Both women offered him something precious but completely different. Ayanna offered adventure, passion, and a partner who could match his strength. Kaya offered comfort, devotion, and the gentle love he had never known. That night, as Jake made camp under the stars, he stared up at the sky and wondered how he had gotten into such an impossible situation. He cared for both sisters, but in different ways. The thought of choosing one meant losing the other, and he was not sure he could bear that. In the Apache camp, the two sisters lay awake in their separate sleeping places, each wondering what the cowboy was thinking. The competition had only begun, but already it was tearing at the bond between them. Both knew that their relationship as sisters might never be the same, but neither could bring herself to give up the chance at love. Winter was coming to the Arizona territory, and Jake's visits to the trading post became more frequent. Each time he arrived, the tension between Ayana and Kaya grew stronger. The entire Apache community began to notice the competition between the sisters, and people started taking sides. Some of the older women supported Ayana, believing that Jake needed a strong wife who could handle the dangerous life of a ranch woman. Others favored Kaya, thinking that her gentle nature would bring Jake the happiness he deserved after years of lonely bachelor life. Jake's friend Pete watched the situation develop with growing concern. "You're playing with fire, boy," he warned Jake one cold morning as they loaded supplies. "Those girls are getting serious about you, and their people are starting to choose sides. This could turn ugly if you're not careful." Jake knew Pete was right, but he felt trapped. Every time he saw Ayana's confident smile or felt Kaya's gentle touch on his arm, he fell deeper into an impossible situation. He had never experienced anything like the way these two women made him feel. During his next visit, Ayana made her intentions even clearer. She found Jake alone behind the trading post and stepped close to him, her dark eyes intense with emotion. "I have been thinking about what you said last time about your ranch," she began, her voice lower than usual. "I want to see it. I want to understand the life you would offer a wife." Jake's breath caught in his throat. "Ayana, that's a 3-day journey from here. Your people would never allow it." She smiled with the same boldness he had come to expect from her. "My people respect strength and courage. If I choose to ride with you to see your land, they will understand. Unless you think I cannot handle such a journey." The challenge in her voice was clear. Jake knew that questioning Ayana's abilities was one sure way to make her determined to prove him wrong. "It's not about what you can handle," he said carefully. "It's about what's proper." Ayana laughed, a sound like silver bells in the wind. "Proper? When have you ever known me to care about what is proper? I make my own choices." Before Jake could respond, Kaya appeared around the corner of the building. She had obviously heard their conversation, and her face was pale with hurt and anger. "Sister," Kaya said, her voice tight with emotion, "surely you would not travel alone with a man you are not married to." "What would our grandmother say?" Ayana turned to face her sister, and Jake could see the pain in both their faces. These two women who had loved each other all their lives were being torn apart by their feelings for him. "Our grandmother would say that a woman must fight for what she wants," Ayana replied. "She would not understand a woman who sits quietly and hopes that love will come to her without effort." Kaya's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained steady. "And she would also say that love built on competition and challenges is not the kind of love that lasts through hard times." Jake stepped between them, his heart breaking at the sight of their pain. "Please, both of you, don't let this destroy what you have together. Your bond as sisters is more important than any man." Both women looked at him with surprise. Ayana recovered first, her expression hardening. "You think we are foolish girls playing games? You think our feelings for you are not real?" "That's not what I meant," Jake said quickly, but he could see he had made a mistake. Kaya wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders. "Perhaps my sister is right. Perhaps sitting quietly is not enough." She looked directly at Jake with more determination than he had ever seen from her. "If she can offer to show you her strength by riding to your ranch, then I can offer something else. I can show you my skills as a woman who could make your house a home." Jake stared at her in confusion. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I will come to your ranch as well, but not to prove I can ride or shoot or track like a man. I will come to show you what life would be like with a wife who knows how to make a man happy in his own home." Ayana's eyes flashed with anger. "Sister, you cannot mean to follow us. This is my idea, my challenge to Jake." Kaya met her sister's gaze without backing down. "You want to compete? Then we will compete properly. Jake can see what each of us has to offer, and then he can make his choice." The two sisters stared at each other, and Jake realized that something had changed forever between them. The gentle Kaya he had known was showing a strength he had not seen before, while Ayana seemed shaken by her sister's unexpected boldness. Jake looked from one woman to the other, knowing that whatever he said next would change all their lives. The competition had moved beyond the safety of the trading post and their familiar community. Now it would play out on his own land in his own home, where the consequences would be impossible to avoid. "If both of you are determined to do this," he said slowly, "then I cannot stop you. But you must understand that at the end, I can choose only one path. One of you will be hurt, and I hate that more than I can say." Ayana nodded firmly. "I am not afraid of being hurt. I'm only afraid of not trying. Kaya surprised them both by reaching out and taking her sister's hand. We have been close all our lives. Whatever happens, we must promise that we will still be sisters when this is over. Ayana squeezed her sister's hand, tears gathering in her own eyes for the first time since Jake had known her. We will always be sisters, she whispered. But only one of us can be his wife. The journey to Jake's ranch took 4 days instead of 3, because of an early winter storm that forced them to take shelter in a cave for most of one day. During that time, Jake watched the two sisters interact in ways that both amazed and worried him. Ayana took charge of their safety with natural authority. She scouted ahead for danger, found the best places to make camp, and kept their fire burning through the cold night. When Jake's horse went lame on the second day, she quickly diagnosed the problem and knew exactly how to treat it. Her skills were impressive, and Jake found himself admiring her more with each passing hour. But Kaya showed her own strengths in different ways. She prepared their meals with ingredients she gathered along the trail, turning simple supplies into food that warmed both body and soul. When Jake cut his hand on a sharp rock, she cleaned and bandaged the wound with gentle efficiency. During the long hours of riding, she told stories that made the time pass quickly and kept their spirits up during the difficult moments. Most importantly, Jake noticed how both sisters cared for each other despite their competition. When Ayana pushed too hard and exhausted herself, Kaya quietly took over her duties without making her sister feel weak. When Kaya's horse stumbled and nearly threw her, Ayana was instantly at her side, checking for injuries with genuine concern. They love each other as much as they both love me, Jake thought as he watched them share their blankets during the cold nights. How can I be the one to destroy that? On the 4th day, they finally reached Jake's ranch. It sat in a valley, surrounded by red rock formations with a small but sturdy house, a barn, corrals for horses, and pastures where cattle grazed peacefully. A creek ran nearby, providing fresh water year-round. Both sisters fell silent as they took in their first view of the place Jake called home. It was beautiful but isolated, with no neighbors for 20 miles in any direction. The nearest town was a hard day's ride away. Living here would mean long periods of solitude, broken only by occasional visits from traveling traders or cowboys. Ayana surveyed the land with the eye of someone who understood what it took to survive in such a place. The pastures are good, she said approvingly. The water source is reliable, you chose well. She paused, looking at the vast empty spaces stretching to the horizon. But it would be a lonely life for someone who was not strong enough to handle isolation. Kaya's reaction was different. She looked at the small house with its empty windows and imagined it filled with warmth and life. It has good bones, she said softly. A woman could make this into a real home. Over the next 3 days, both sisters set out to prove their points. Ayana threw herself into the outdoor work of the ranch. She helped Jake repair a section of fence that had been damaged by wild horses, and she did it faster and better than most men could have managed. She rode out with him to check on the cattle, spotting problems he might have missed and suggesting improvements to his grazing system. When a pack of coyotes threatened the livestock one night, Ayana was ready with her rifle before Jake even heard the danger. She stood guard until dawn, alert and fearless, protecting what could become her home with the fierce dedication of a true ranch woman. But Kaya focused on transforming the inside of Jake's house. She cleaned years of bachelor neglect from every corner, organized his supplies efficiently, and used her sewing skills to make curtains that turned the bare windows into welcoming openings that invited the beautiful scenery inside. She cooked meals that filled the small house with wonderful smells and made Jake realize how much he had missed having someone care for his comfort. In the evenings, she sat by the fire mending his clothes and telling him about her dreams of having children who could grow up safe and happy in this peaceful valley. Jake found himself torn more than ever. During the days working alongside Ayana, he felt energized and challenged. She matched his strength and added her own skills to make him a better rancher. With her beside him, he could expand his operation, take on bigger challenges, and build something truly impressive. But in the evenings, sitting in his transformed house with Kaya, he felt a peace he had never known. After years of eating alone, sleeping alone, and facing every problem by himself, Her gentle presence made him understand what he had been missing. With her, his house could become a true home, where he could find rest and happiness after hard days of work. On the third night, as they sat around the fire after dinner, the tension finally came to a head. Ayanna had spent the day helping Jake break a wild horse, and she was flushed with success and excitement. Kaya had prepared a special meal to celebrate their accomplishment, and the house glowed with warmth and comfort. "Jake," Ayanna said suddenly, her voice carrying the same boldness that had attracted him from the beginning. "You have seen what I can do. I can be your partner in building something great here. Together we could have the finest ranch in the territory." Jake felt his heart racing as he looked at her confident, beautiful face in the firelight. But before he could respond, Kaya spoke up with quiet determination. "And you have seen what I can offer. I can make this house into a home where you will always want to return. I can give you the peace and love that will make all your hard work worthwhile." Jake looked from one sister to the other, knowing that the moment of decision had finally arrived. Both had proven their points completely. Either one would make him a good wife, but in completely different ways. The choice he made now would determine not only his own future, but the fate of two remarkable women and their relationship with each other. Jake stood up from his chair by the fire and walked to the window, staring out at the star-filled sky. The silence in the room was so thick it felt like a living thing. Both sisters waited, their eyes fixed on his back, knowing that his next words would change everything. "I need time to think," Jake said finally, his voice rough with emotion. "This decision will affect all our lives forever. I cannot make it lightly." Ayanna rose from her seat, her jaw set with determination. "Time will not make this choice easier, Jake. You know in your heart what you want. Trust that feeling." Kaya remained seated, but her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. "My sister is right about one thing. Your heart already knows. We have both shown you who we are. Now you must decide who you need more." Jake turned back to face them, and both women could see the pain in his blue eyes. "That's just it," he said quietly. "I need you both in different ways. Ayanna, you make me want to be stronger, to take on bigger challenges, to build something impressive. With you, I feel like I could conquer the world." Ayanna's face lit up with hope, but Jake continued before she could speak. "And Kaya, you make me feel like I have a reason to come home every night. You make me want to be a better man, not just a more successful one. With you, I feel like I could be truly happy for the first time in my life." Tears gathered in Kaya's eyes, but she blinked them away. "Then you understand why this choice is so hard for us too. We each love different parts of you, just as you love different parts of us." That night, none of them slept well. Jake lay in his bed listening to the soft voices of the sisters talking quietly in the next room. He could not make out their words, but he could hear the pain and love in their tones as they talked through their impossible situation. In the morning, Jake made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. "I'm going to town," he announced as they sat down to breakfast. "There are supplies I need, and I want to think about all this away from the ranch." "I'll be gone 2 days." Both sisters stared at him in shock. "You're leaving us here alone?" Ayanna asked, her voice sharp with disbelief. "I'm trusting you both to take care of my home while I'm gone," Jake replied, meeting her eyes steadily. "And I'm hoping that maybe some time together without me in the middle will help you remember what's most important." Kaya understood first. "You want us to remember that we are sisters before we are anything else?" Jake nodded. "I've been thinking about what Pete said about this situation turning ugly. I don't want to be the reason two people who love each other become enemies." Ayanna's expression softened slightly. "And what if we cannot work this out between ourselves? What if we still both want you when you return?" "Then I'll make my choice," Jake said quietly. "But at least I'll know I gave you both the chance to decide what matters most to you." After Jake left, the sisters found themselves alone together for the first time since their competition had begun. For several hours, they moved around the house and property in uncomfortable silence, each lost in her own thoughts. Finally, as they worked together to prepare the evening meal, Kaya spoke up. "Sister, do you remember when we were children and we both wanted the same doll that the trader brought to our village?" Ayanna paused in her chopping of vegetables. "I remember. We fought over it for days until Mother took it away and gave it to another child. We both ended up with nothing. I have been thinking about that story since Jake left, Kaya said softly. I wonder if we are making the same mistake again. Ayanna set down her knife and looked at her sister. You think we should both give him up? Let him choose some other woman? No, Kaya said quickly. But I think maybe we need to remember that no matter who he chooses, we will still have each other if we want to. The question is, do we want to? That evening, the sisters sat by the fire and talked more honestly than they had in weeks. They shared their fears about the future, their dreams of love and family, and their worries about what would happen to their relationship. I am afraid, Ayanna admitted, her voice smaller than usual. I have always been the strong one, the one who was never afraid of anything. But I am terrified of losing you, sister. You are the only person who has loved me my whole life, no matter how wild or difficult I became. Kaya reached out and took her sister's hand, and I am afraid that I am not strong enough for the kind of life Jake offers. I love him, but I also love our people, our traditions, the life I have always known. What if I choose him and then cannot be happy so far from everything familiar? As the sisters talked through the night, they began to understand things about themselves and each other that they had never realized before. They talked about what marriage would mean, what sacrifices each would have to make, and what they truly wanted from life. By dawn, both sisters had reached conclusions that would have surprised Jake if he had been there to hear them. The time alone had indeed changed things, but not in the way any of them had expected. When Jake returned from town 2 days later, he found both sisters waiting for him on the front porch of his house. They sat close together, and something in their posture told him immediately that things had changed during his absence. Welcome home, Kaya said softly as he dismounted from his horse. There was a sadness in her voice that made Jake's chest tighten with worry. Ayanna stood up and walked down the steps to help him with his supplies. We need to talk with you, she said, her usual boldness tempered with something gentler. Both of us together. Jake nodded, his throat suddenly dry. He had hoped that his time away would give him clarity about his choice, but instead he had only become more confused. In town, away from both sisters, he had realized how much he cared for each of them and how impossible it would be to hurt either one. They sat in his small parlor, the sisters on the sofa and Jake in his wooden chair across from them. The afternoon light streaming through Kaya's handmade curtains made everything look golden and peaceful, but the tension in the room was unmistakable. Jake, Ayanna began, her voice unusually gentle. My sister and I have talked much while you were gone. We have learned things about ourselves and about what we truly want. Kaya nodded, her hands folded in her lap. We realized that we were so focused on competing for your heart that we forgot to ask ourselves the most important questions. Jake leaned forward, confused. What questions? Whether we truly want the life that marrying you would mean, Ayanna said directly, and whether that want is strong enough to justify hurting my sister or asking her to give up her own dreams. Jake felt his heart begin to pound. And what did you decide? The sisters looked at each other, and Jake saw a communication pass between them that needed no words. They had clearly reached some kind of understanding during his absence. I realized, Kaya said slowly, that I love the idea of being your wife more than I love the reality of what that would mean. I love you, Jake, truly I do. But I also love my people, my traditions, and my life near the reservation. Living here, so far from everything I have ever known, would make me lonely and sad. And a lonely, sad wife would not make you happy no matter how much she loved you. Jake stared at her, seeing the wisdom in her words even as they broke his heart. Kaya, if distance is the only problem, we could find a way. I could sell this ranch and find land closer to your people. Kaya smiled but shook her head. You love this place, Jake. I have seen it in your eyes every morning when you look out at your land. You have worked too hard to build this life to give it up for anyone, and I would not want you to. Jake turned to Ayanna, afraid of what she might say. And you? Did you reach the same conclusion? Ayanna was quiet for a long moment, her dark eyes thoughtful. No, she said finally. I realized something different. I discovered that I do want this life with you, more than I have ever wanted anything. I am not afraid of the isolation or the hard work or the distance from our people. This land speaks to something in my soul that I never knew was there. Jake's heart leaped, but Ayanna held up her hand to stop him from speaking. But I also realized that wanting something is not the same as deserving it. I have spent weeks competing with my sister, trying to prove that I would be the better wife for you, I was so focused on winning that I forgot the most important thing. What's that? Jake asked quietly. Love is not a competition, Ayanna said simply. If you choose me only because I proved I was stronger or more capable than Kaya, then you are not really choosing me at all. You are just choosing the winner of a contest. Jake stood up and began pacing the small room, his mind racing. So what are you both saying? That neither of you wants to marry me? Kaya and Ayanna exchanged another look, and this time Jake saw something that surprised him. Peace. Despite the sadness in their faces, both sisters looked more at peace than they had since this whole situation began. We are saying that we want you to be happy, Kaya said gently, and we believe that you can only be truly happy if you choose with your heart, not with your head. Ayanna nodded. We are also saying that we have remembered something more important than any man, even a man we both love. We have remembered that we are sisters and that bond is sacred. We will not let it be broken no matter what happens. Jake stopped pacing and looked at both women, seeing them clearly for perhaps the first time since this all began. Kaya sat with quiet dignity, her decision made with wisdom beyond her years. Ayanna sat with the same strength he had always admired, but now it was tempered with something deeper and more mature. I need to ask you both something honestly, Jake said, his voice rough with emotion. If I could choose both of you, if there was some way we could all be together and happy, would you want that? Both sisters smiled sadly, and Ayanna answered for them both. In our dreams, perhaps, but in the real world that is not possible. A man can have only one wife and a woman can have only one husband. We all know this. The room fell silent again, and Jake realized that the decision he had been dreading was finally before him. But now it felt different than it had before. The sisters had changed the nature of the choice by removing themselves from the competition. Now he had to choose not between two prizes, but between two different futures, each with its own joys and sorrows. Jake walked to the window and stared out at his land, the place he had worked so hard to build into something meaningful. The evening sun was setting behind the red rocks, painting everything in shades of gold and crimson. In that moment of beauty and silence, he finally understood what his heart had been trying to tell him all along. He turned back to face the sisters, his decision clear in his eyes before he spoke a word. Ayanna, he said quietly, will you be my wife? Kaya's face showed a flicker of pain, but it was quickly replaced by something that looked like relief. She stood up and walked to her sister, taking Ayanna's hands in hers. I am happy for you both, Kaya said, and Jake could hear that she meant it. You belong together in ways that I never could belong with Jake. You both love this wild, challenging life. You will build something beautiful together. Ayanna's eyes filled with tears as she looked at her sister. Are you certain you can forgive me for this? I cannot bear the thought of losing you. Kaya smiled and pulled her sister into a tight embrace. There is nothing to forgive. We followed our hearts and that led us to the truth. You will always be my sister no matter where life takes us. Jake watched the two women holding each other, and he felt a mixture of joy and sorrow that was almost overwhelming. He was gaining the woman he loved, but he was also losing another woman who had touched his heart deeply. Kaya, he said softly, I want you to know that you will always have a place in our lives. You will always be welcome here, and if there is ever anything you need, anything at all, you only have to ask. Kaya nodded, wiping away her tears. I know, and I want you both to know that you will always have a place with our people. Ayanna, you are not losing your family by marrying Jake. You are adding to it. The next morning, the three of them began the journey back to the Apache reservation. Jake rode beside Ayanna, their hands occasionally touching as they guided their horses side by side. Kaya rode slightly ahead, pointing out landmarks and telling stories, her natural grace and dignity intact despite her heartbreak. When they arrived at the trading post, the entire Apache community seemed to be waiting for them. Word had somehow spread that the competition between the sisters had been resolved, and everyone wanted to know the outcome. Morning Star, the sisters' mother, stepped forward first. She looked at each of her daughters carefully, reading their faces with a mother's intuition. It is decided then, she said simply. Ayanna will go with the cowboy and Kaya will remain with us. Yes, mother, both sisters said together. Morning Star nodded approvingly. Good. You have both chosen with wisdom instead of jealousy. That makes me proud. The Apache elders held a long discussion about the marriage between Ayanna and Jake. Some worried about losing one of their finest young women to the white world. Others argued that Jake had proven his respect for their people and their ways. In the end, they gave their blessing, but with conditions. The cowboy must learn our marriage customs, declared the oldest elder, a man named White Eagle. If he wants to marry one of our daughters, he must do it properly with our ceremonies and traditions. Jake agreed immediately. He spent the next 2 weeks living with the Apache people, learning their language better, understanding their customs, and proving that his love for Ayanna was real and lasting. The wedding took place on a beautiful spring morning, with both Apache and white traditions woven together into something new and meaningful. Kaya served as her sister's helper, braiding Ayanna's hair with beads and flowers, helping her into the beautiful white deerskin dress that had been their grandmother's. "You look like a princess," Kaya whispered as she made the final adjustments to Ayanna's appearance. "I feel like one," Ayanna replied, her eyes shining with happiness. "But I am still scared. What if I cannot be the wife Jake needs? What if I am too wild for marriage after all?" Kaya took her sister's face in her hands. "Listen to me. Jake fell in love with your wildness. He does not want to tame you. He wants to run wild with you. That is what makes him perfect for you." During the ceremony, Jake looked into Ayanna's eyes and saw his future stretching out before them. It would not be an easy life, but it would be an adventure worth living. Ayanna was strong enough to be his partner in every challenge they would face together. When the time came for the new couple to leave for Jake's ranch, the entire community gathered to see them off. Kaya presented them with a beautifully woven blanket she had made as a wedding gift. "For the cold nights," she said simply, but Jake understood that she was giving them her blessing along with the practical gift. As Jake and Ayanna rode away toward their new life together, Kaya stood with her mother and watched until they disappeared over the horizon. She felt sad but also peaceful. She had learned something important about herself during these difficult months. She had discovered that she was stronger than she had ever imagined, and that sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to step aside. 6 months later, Jake and Ayanna returned to the trading post for supplies and to visit Kaya. They brought news that Ayanna was expecting their first child, and that the ranch was thriving under their combined efforts. Kaya had news of her own. She had begun courting a young Apache warrior named Running Bear, a man who loved her gentle nature and wanted to build a quiet, happy life near their people. As the three of them sat around the fire that evening, sharing stories and laughter, Jake realized that they had all found exactly what they needed. Sometimes love meant choosing, and sometimes it meant letting go. But when it was real and true, it always led to happiness in the end. The competition for Jake's heart had ended not with bitterness or loss, but with wisdom and new beginnings for everyone involved. Both sisters had found their true paths, and Jake had found not just a wife but a family that would always welcome him home.